Good morning, saints, and welcome to Greater Williams Temple Sunday School, where our pastor is Superintendent Arthur L. Aikin. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Saints, today's lesson is called God Provides Judges to Help Moses, and it's taken from Exodus chapter 18, verses 13 through 16. Saints, in Exodus 4, 19 and 20, God tells Moses, I have an assignment for you. I want you to go back to Egypt, and don't worry about going, because the men that were there who wanted to kill you are all dead now. So we're told that Moses takes his wife Zipporah and his two sons Gershom and Eleazar and sets out to go to Egypt. Exodus 18 and 5 tells us, saints, though, that obviously at some point Moses sent his wife and his two children back to Midian, where he was, to his father-in-law Jethro. And I say that, saints, because we are told that Jethro, after he heard the wonderful things about Moses bringing his people up out of Egypt, went to meet Moses in the wilderness near Mount Sinai. And when he went, he took Zipporah and Moses' two sons along with him. Starting with Exodus 18, 13 and 14 verses, I've combined, saints, and it says, And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people. And the people stood by Moses from the morning unto evening. And when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people, he said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning unto evening? Translated, saints, that says, The next day Moses sat to hear the people's complaint against each other from morning until evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw how much time he was taking, he said, Why are you trying to do all this alone, with people standing here all day to get your help? Saints, Moses and the Israelites had dealt with the issues of no food. They had dealt with the issues of no water. They had dealt with the issue of being attacked by the Amalekites. But now, saints, they were facing another problem. And this problem that they were now facing was more subtle. It was more off the radar, saints, but it was just as dangerous, just as harmful to the people. The problem that they were now facing was not an in-your-face kind of problem like no food or no water or being attacked by an enemy. And this problem was recognized, saints, not by insiders, but from an outsider. We're told that the morning after Jethro arrived with his daughter and Moses' sons, that Moses started to judge people, and he did it, saints, from sunup to sundown, and it was so many people that he had people left over who did not hear him at all. And Jethro's observation of Moses' method of judging clearly showed him that the process that Moses was using was simply too much for one man to handle, and he could not continue to do this the way he was doing it. So Jethro, being Moses' father-in-law, respectfully asked him, What are you doing? What are you doing? Because you can't do this all by yourself. And as a matter of fact, respectfully, Moses, you are your own logjam in this process that you are using. You are your problem. Your problem is you. Verses 15 and 16 I've combined. And Moses said unto his father-in-law, Because the people come to me to inquire of God, when they have a matter they come unto me, and I judge between one and another, and I do make them know the statutes of God and his laws. Translated, saints, that says, Moses replied to his father-in-law, well, the people come to me with their disputes and ask for God's decisions. I am their judge, declaring who is right and who is wrong, and instructing them in God's ways. I apply the laws of God to their particular disputes. Saints, Moses, just so we understand it, Moses was more than a civil judge. He was more than that. He was also a prophet. So his process of judging people took the civil law that they already had. Even though the law of God had not been given at Mount Sinai, they did have some laws that governed them as a people. He used those laws and whatever revelations that he got from God and mixed those two in order to make decisions on his people's complaints. And he combined them again with the revelations of God to settle all kinds of disputes. And, so when his father-in-law asked him this question, Moses saw no alternative to what he was doing. He didn't see no other way of doing it. He said, I am God's prophet, and I know the existing laws that we do have. So the way I'm doing things makes sense to me. I'm faithful to God who appointed me, and I am faithful to my people who come to me so that I can have their consultation, or rather they can have mine. Verses 17 and 18, saints. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, the thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and the people that is with thee. For this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. Translated, saints, that says, it's not right, his father-in-law exclaimed. You're going to wear yourself out? And if you do, what will happen, Moses, to the people? This job is too heavy a burden for you to try to handle all by yourself. And as we can see, saints, Jethro, if nothing else, was blunt, but he was not disrespectful to his son-in-law when he approached him. He told Moses, what you're doing, son, is just not good. He didn't mean that Moses handing out justice was not good. He meant that the way he was doing it was not good. And it was clear to him that Moses' current system was too great a burden for Moses to do by himself. He warned Moses. He said, now, if you continue to do this, Moses, you're going to wear both yourself out and you're going to wear all of the people out. And what's going to happen with that, if you continue doing it the way you're doing it, it's not going to leave you room to deal with a lot of the critical responsibilities, the other responsibilities that you have besides judging. You won't be able to do them for the people, and you're going to be lacking as a leader. Add to that, the people are going to be frustrated because all of them will not hear their cases heard in a timely manner from you. Sometimes, saints, even if we have the best of intentions, our plans and actions can be counterproductive if we really don't watch what we're doing and to plan things right, especially in terms of labor distribution. We would be wise, saints, to periodically look at our motives and look at our methods to make sure we're making the best use of our time serving God. We would also be wise, saints, to listen to the sincere observation and the sincere evaluation of those people that we respect, those other brothers and sisters who are Christians with us. I have an occasion, saints, from time to time to speak to young people. And besides telling them that I could really tell them how to be successful or how to fail, because I've done both of those things in my lifetime, I also tell them the difference between young people and old people. Old people are not smarter than young people. We are really not. It is not that, but we are probably a lot wiser than young people. And wisdom comes just from living and experiencing things. I'll give you an example. I tell them if I walk down a set of wooden steps and the third step that I step on is rotten and one of my feet goes through it and I break that leg, the next time I see a young person about to walk down those same steps, I can tell that young person, I'm not smarter than you. I don't know how to navigate steps any better than you. But I can tell you just from experience that you better watch out for that third step, because if you walk on that, it's rotten and you're going to go through it and break your leg. It is wisdom that we have paid for just by living. It's not that older people or even older Christians are smarter than the young ones. It's just that we were a bit wiser just from living and having more experiences. So it is good to listen to people who have been at something longer than you, and that includes being Christians. Verses 19 and 20, saints, hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God, and thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Translated, saints, that says, now listen and let me give you a word of advice, Moses, and God will bless you. You be these people's lawyer, their representative before God, bringing him their questions to decide. You will tell them his decisions, teaching them God's laws, and showing them the principle of godly living. Saints, Jethro wasn't just satisfied to tell Moses, his son-in-law, what he had observed. He also had a solution for him. He just didn't show him, point out a problem to him like some people do. He had a solution for Moses, but he first said, may God help you carry out my advice. The first advice, saints, that he gave Moses, besides going to God first, was to keep on representing people the way you've been representing them, Moses. Because I'm not asking you to give up your prophetic office. You keep representing people the way you've been doing, and you keep seeking God's wisdom and teaching people how to live godly lives. You keep that part of it up. Verses 21 and 22, saints, I've combined, and they are lengthy. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fearing God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, and rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. Translated, saints, that says, Jethro told Moses, find some capable, godly, honest men who hate bribes, and appoint them as judges, one judge for each 1,000 people. He in turn will have 10 judges under him, each in charge of 100. And under each of them will be 2 judges, each responsible for the affairs of 50 people. And each of them will have 5 judges beneath him, each counseling 10 persons, rather. Let these men be responsible to serve the people with justice at all times. Anything that is too important or complicated can be brought to you. But the smaller matters, they can take care of themselves. That way, it will be easier for you because you will share your burden with them. Saints, we're told that Jethro went on to advise his son-in-law to appoint qualified men to assist him in his work. And he offered these 4 qualifications for those appointed men. First, saints, he told him, these men must be able men. They must be able both physically and morally in terms of strength. They must be able to endure judging all day. They must have the moral strength to judge in a righteous manner. They must be sincere followers of the Lord and take their responsibility seriously. They must be faithful in carrying out their jobs and faithful to the Lord at the same time. And lastly, saints, he told them they must hate unjust gain, because they can never judge if they can be influenced by material gain. Don't put nobody in there judging people, he tells Moses, that can be bought. You don't need anybody who will go for material gain before they go for what is not right, because it will destroy your whole system. Now, saints, because these men would be delegated authority over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens, they would be representing various levels of government. They would not be prophets like Moses, but they would relieve him of a lot of time and effort that he was using and doing all by himself. Now, Jethro's proposal to Moses, saints, did contain wisdom, because now Moses could deal with what was considered significant matters. To give you an example of how this would help him and how it worked, if you remember reading your Bible, there was a point in time in the New Testament that people started to complain because the issue was said to be that you are taking care of the widows, but you're only taking care of the Hebrew widows. And we need you to take care of all of the widows. And out of that, the apostles chose men who we know as deacons to make sure that all of the widows were taken care of. This is the same thing that Jethro was telling Moses to do. You know, you get some people to help you the same way the apostles saw that they would need someone to help lighten their burden so that they could go out and teach the way that they were supposed to teach. Verse 23, if thou shalt do this thing, and God commanded thee so, then thou shalt be able to endure. And all this people shall also go to their place in peace. Translated, saints, it says, if you follow this advice, Moses, and if the Lord agrees, you will be able to endure the pressures, and there will be peace and harmony in your camp. We're told, saints, but that as much as Jethro believed that his proposal was sound and a wise one, again, he told Moses, before you do anything, get the Lord's approval and permission to do so. He believed, Jethro, he believed that this plan of his will allow two things. Number one, Moses would be able to hold up physically. Number two, and the people would go back to their daily lives in peace with all of their disputes fairly settled. Verse 24, saints, so Moses hearkened to the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he said. Translated, Moses listened to Jethro's advice and followed his suggestions. Saints, although Moses was the God-appointed leader of his people, he was still the kind of man that was humble enough to listen to his father-in-law because he recognized sound advice when he heard it. Some scholars, saints, have argued that Moses was wrong to listen to Jethro, but these scholars themselves, saints, were wrong, and they were wrong for two reasons. Number one, Jethro submitted his advice, but only under God's will and God's approval. And the second thing was God's wisdom, saints, often comes to us through the observation and reasoning of other godly believers. A lot of times, saints, our best advice can come from other brothers and sisters who are able to actually observe something about us that we can't observe. And they can tell us, so we need to always understand that God, besides giving us the power of reason and the power of logic, he also gives our brothers and sisters observations of us that will help us if we listen to sound advice from others. Verses 25 and 26, saints, and Moses chose able men out of Israel and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And they judged their people at all seasons. The hard causes they brought before Moses, but every small matter they judged themselves. Translated, saints, that says, Moses chose able men from all over Israel and made them judges over the people, thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They were constantly available to administer justice. They brought the hard cases to Moses, but they judged the smaller matters themselves. We're told, saints, that Moses followed Jethro's advice, and he appointed able men to serve as judges on different levels, and that they handled like the routine matters that Moses was handling all day long, and they brought the harder ones back to Moses. And this system accomplished this dual purpose of relieving Moses of a lot of strain and carrying out justice in a timely manner at the same time. Now, saints, after hearing this lesson, we may say to ourselves that this lesson was really not only short, but it was trivial. But saints, I got to tell you, when you look at the volume of space that this lesson takes up in the Bible, one thing has to be perfectly clear to you, and that is that it was not trivial to God. If he allowed this kind of space in the Bible to talk about this specific incident with Moses and his father-in-law, it had to be important to God. And if it's important to God enough to put into the Bible, like everything else, it is put there as an example for us saints, and it's something that we should try our best to study and to emulate. There are at least, saints, three important principles that this lesson brings out. First of all, it demonstrates the importance of encouragement. Now, you know, with what Moses had been going through with his people about the food and the bread, they had to have gotten on his last nerve. They really did, and Moses needed some encouragement from somebody, and he got that very thing from his father-in-law. After hearing the people complaining about no food, no water, and the Amalekites, Moses needed somebody to show, besides God, to show that they were concerned about him. His father-in-law, in giving him this advice, showed that he was concerned about him. And second, saints, it shows the wisdom of shared responsibility. There's a danger, saints. There's a danger in one person trying to do too much. I should talk as an only child. I have that flaw in my personality. And by the way, these lessons that I talk about every Sunday are for me as well as for you. I listen to my own lessons, by the way. Saints, seriously, there is a danger in one person trying to do too much, even if that person is trying to do good work. There's a danger in he or she trying to do too much by themselves. And finally, saints, Jethro's evaluation and his proposal shows that God often supplies our needs, saints, through other people's abilities and wisdom. Close the book, saints. Thank you for listening. Please join us next week for another Sunday school lesson, and please join us later on this morning at 11 a.m. for our worship service that is headed by our pastor, Superintendent Arthur L. Aikin. And until next week, saints, be safe and be blessed.